Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMScast. My name is Chris Badgett and I'm joined by a special guest, Mendel Kurland from GoDaddy. He's the GoDaddy evangelist and space cowboy. And he's also got a lot of interesting things going on from experience developing training and also developing a really interesting live event called CamPress. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into Mendel's story. But before we do all that, I just want to thank you, Mendel, for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So at LifterLMS, a lot of the people are designing courses. Some of them come at courses after being speakers on the stage and actually getting a little road weary and wanting to like do the whole internet thing instead of living in airports and traveling all the time and speaking on the stage and try to figure out how to kind of digitize that. Some people go the other way where they're building courses and they're like, hey, I kind of want to, I'm getting a little lonely behind my computer and ScreenFlow. I'd like to, connect with my people and have some kind of event or mastermind or summit or something. And when I first came across your work in Cabo Press, you designed an event called CamPress that first started in Oklahoma, and now you're setting one up to happen in Iceland. What's CamPress and where did that idea come from?
Yeah, man, I was, so the first year I traveled three years ago, like big time for GoDaddy. I flew 175,000 miles. And then the second year I was like at 150,000. This year I've gotten away with like 100,000, right? So I've met a lot of people, and I've also experienced a lot of pain myself when it comes to living that corporate life, right? Like staying in the Hilton and like going from conference center to hotel to airport to conference center to hotel to airport, right? And maybe a few restaurants here and there, which sounds amazing at first. And then you start to realize that you miss this component of humanity, right? That exists outside of this bubble that we all live in. And I started to notice that people that I was talking to, because primarily I talk to web developers and designers and entrepreneurs and product people and stuff like that, they were all kind of saying the same thing. I started to tell them how I felt, and they started to agree with me. And they were like, yeah, I love going out for a hike. I haven't been out in forever. I love, going to work out, but it never seems to work out. I love getting out from behind my computer. And so I started thinking about it, and the way my mind works, I think about something, and then I'm like, well, I want to fix this. And so I look to see if there's anything else kind of similar. Nothing else kind of excited me. And so I decided to prototype a couple things, one of them being CamPress. The other one being an organization called Hiking with Geeks. And the purpose of those two groups is quite literally to get geeks out from behind their computers and either onto the trail or having person-to-person conversations or connecting with each other offline, which I think is a very powerful way to build business influence and just your business in general. So
cool. What is can you tell us a little bit more about the two events? What was Hiking with Geeks like, and what was CamPress like?
Yeah, so Hiking with Geeks is ongoing. There's 14 chapters across North America.
Wow.
There's, I think, 16,000 members. Maybe we're up to 17,000 now. And the concept is simple: super inclusive environment, geeks only. If you don't self-identify as a geek, if you're like a guy or girl that's like, hey, geeks are stupid, I don't want to hang out with them, or I'm too cool for that, or whatever, then you're not allowed, because we only want people that are like open to the experience. So that is quite simply people getting out from behind their computers, their labs, their desks, and going on a hike, hitting the trail. And by hike, we're talking about like a walk through the woods, right? This is an accessible thing for most anybody. So that's hiking with geeks.
Let me ask you a couple questions before we shift to CamPress. I'm imagining this is free.
Yes.
Or maybe not. It's a free thing with did you say 17,000 members?
Yeah, now it's 17,000 members across 14 meetups. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you're using the Meetup platform to organize it? Is that correct?
Yeah, at the moment. So for anybody that's used Meetup, it's a great platform. It's what I call a discovery engine, right? It actually funnels members through their system very well into your event. It's really great. It's a great way to get new people to discover an experience. It's not really great to be able to remarket to those people or to create some sort of brand affiliation. And it's possible, but it's hard. And so I've used that as a tool to then funnel people to a big Slack channel where we all talk about geeky hiking stuff. Or then push people to disconnected events like CamPress. But the whole idea is that anybody, it's a decentralized meetup, so anybody can fill out a form. When they fill out the form, it automatically spins up a meetup description. I post that description for whoever it is that wants to run the hike, and the only qualification is that these people have to be nice people. They have to try and help include everybody, conversations, all that, right? Answer questions beforehand. They don't have to know the trail, because part of the beauty of it is that we're all humans, right? We can all figure out how to get from one point to another. We've been doing it for like hundreds of years, right? And so you don't have to be an expert, and we put those events out there, and typically we get, in Dallas, we're getting turnouts of maybe 40, 50 people per event. In other areas, maybe 50%, which is pretty high for Meetup. Normally, Meetup is around a fifth of the people that sign up actually attend. But it's really been an effective way to get people out on the trail and just enjoying a free event where they can network with other people from Microsoft, or people from Indeed.com, or people from there are a bunch of chip manufacturers in Austin, and so we get people from all those chip manufacturers who are engineers and scientists and any nerdy profession that you can think of. That's who they are. So
that's awesome. So if you're listening out there and you haven't been to a meetup, I'd encourage you to check one out, but also think about starting one. And it's not just for cities. I live in a rural area. It's called Midcoast, Maine. There's a lot of small towns. I'm actually in the process of just starting a meetup around the topics of WordPress, online education, and digital entrepreneurship. And people are joining from towns all around in my rural area. And eventually we're going to start getting it together in person. But a lot of entrepreneurs especially can end up isolated or whatever. And it's so important to get out of the building, which leads me to the insight that I wanted to ask you about. When you take somebody who's predominantly digital or behind a computer and you remove the internet, I mean, I'm sure you still have the phone or whatever, but you actually get out into the woods or wherever and you're hiking, what does that do to people? Like if you're playing the anthropologist and you just take a step back and you look around at the fellow geeks in the woods, what's happening from the experience?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The first time, and actually something I'm really fascinated with, the first time I went on one of these hikes, I invited people out, and it was weird because I got there and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be strange, because I'm standing there and I'm trying to make an announcement, tell everybody what it's all about. I'm standing on a rock, and they're all just super awkward. They're standing there and they're super awkward. And I'm like, man, maybe this was a mistake. Like, I don't know if this is going to work out. So we got on the trail, I realized, there's something that happens. I don't know if you've gone on a really long walk, maybe like 5, 6, 7, 10 miles, right? So this happens to me a lot when I do like 20 miles. You completely zone out. You're one with your thoughts, right? And there's something magical that happens when you have that methodical beat of your feet touching the pavement or touching the trail, because after a certain amount of time, you stop worrying about your insecurities, because it's like you're incapable of doing that, right? Your body has to figure out how to avoid obstacles and get where it's going. And instead, you start thinking with a different function of your brain. Now, there are probably psychologists that could explain this exact phenomenon. I don't know what it is, but what happened was awesome, because we're on the trail and all of a sudden people are just talking, and they're talking a lot, right? And they're introducing themselves, and they're not feeling vulnerable, and they're helping each other across these little streams and stuff like that. And we get back at the end, and the key at the end is then I say, if anybody wants to grab something to eat afterwards, we'll organize and we'll go get something to eat. This last trip I was on, normally I'm the one that suggests it. This last trip I was on, this guy said, who wants to go get something for lunch? I was about to leave, and he's like, wait a minute. Let's go get something for lunch. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it, right? And it was like half the group that went, and they wanted to hang out. So people are starved, in particular geeks are starved for that connection. So
Very cool, very cool. And you mentioned a word I wanted to dig in a little bit, which was inclusive. I heard an analogy recently. I was on a virtual summit for people building digital businesses, and one of the other speakers was talking about the croissant versus the bagel. So if you go, it was about networking, and it was about, if you go to a conference, sometimes there's these cliques of people, and it's like a bagel you can't penetrate. But then the croissant is like a gathering of people, the body language is open, it's welcoming if you walk into the circle. That's the croissant. What do you talk to us about, like, inclusiveness? Like, what does that mean? And you say that's like a qualifier for joining Hiking with Geeks. Like, why do you put emphasis on that?
Yeah. So if somebody doesn't tell you explicitly that something is inclusive, then unfortunately by definition, and societal norms, it's not inclusive. Especially when you're talking about an event or a club, which is, what a meetup group kind of is. And so, so we've gone out of our way to put this, or I've gone out of my way to put this on all of the meetup pages, right? Nobody can change the meetup pages. It's basically house rules. And with meetups in particular, for anybody that's building their own experience, this is like a golden rule that everybody's scared of, right? But say what you stand for, and say how you'll enforce it, right? And so the inclusive part has been important from the beginning, because I would literally get people sending messages that say, hey, I'm not that physically fit. Can I still come? Or I haven't been on a trail for like years. Can I come? I'm like, yes. In fact, you're exactly the person I want, right? And so inclusiveness has been big, and then telling people if there's a problem during the meetup, and this is given to all of the organizers, if there's a problem, they're to talk to me, right? And I will and have just completely remove people from the meetup, no questions asked, right? So if there's any inkling that somebody is going to do something or has done something that makes people uncomfortable, we just remove them. And it's my group, it's my rules, right? And that goes for a business meetup, that goes for a hiking meetup. So super, super important.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that leadership piece. If you're going to organize it, or there's going to be another organizer, there is that is one of the group leadership components, is protecting the group.
Yeah.
And taking a stand if you need to remove a member or whatever. Well, let's talk about CamPress. What is it?
Yeah. So CamPress is kind of like a sister to Hiking with Geeks. And the idea is to take it one step further. So instead of just a hike for 2 hours on a weekend or an evening, it's a full experience that involves either camping or cabins. And it's an all-inclusive experience. So you don't have to go and worry that you have the right stuff with you. You basically bring clothes or wear what you wear for 4 days. You'll be good. And there are certain requirements that are important. So number one, whatever the venue is, doesn't typically have great cellular service.
And
so
that's
you don't
by
really,
design?
yeah, you don't really have an option of whether or not you can do work there, right? We don't do it at places like KOA campgrounds because KOA has high-speed internet, right?
Yeah.
So we don't do it at places like that. But the whole idea is a disconnected experience where we bring people together from different walks of life, a diverse group that has diverse interests, and we ask them questions when they first sign up in a questionnaire that asks them about their offline skills. What are they good at? What have they done before in an outdoor setting? What have they not done before? And we use a program called Missions when people first show up to help people connect in a way that's not intrusive, right? So the idea is that this should be whatever you want it to be. If you want to relax, great, go relax. If you want to go read a book, go read a book, If you want to hang out with a couple other people and kick a ball around or something, that's awesome too. But these missions serve as a way to pull people together. So in Oklahoma, when we did our first one, somebody knew how to light a fire, somebody else didn't know how to light a fire. And so they get these index cards when they first show up to the event. And one of them said, it's your mission to go light a fire. And one of them said, it's your mission to help this person with their mission, right? And they didn't know what it was. So they have to communicate, they have to talk, they have to figure out, what they're supposed to do. And it's usually something that then benefits the greater group, right? And so at the end of the time, everybody just bonded, had a great time. Somebody taught us songs, somebody else cooked breakfast for the entire camp, and it really created this sense of community. The first one was in Oklahoma. The goal now is to do them all over the country and world. One scheduled for Texas in 2018, one scheduled for Iceland, because why not go check something off your bucket list with a bunch of geeks while you're at it. Now that one is particularly special because we'll be at the base of a volcano, again in a camp format, this time in cabins because it's a little cold there. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a community. We're going to build that up for 4 days. We're going to have a lot of fun together, do a lot of cool stuff, maybe challenge each other a little bit. And we're going to go home after having an epic time. So
That's awesome. For for the practically minded out there, it sounds like hiking with friends or hiking with geeks is it's more or less free. I think it costs around $15 a month to have a meetup group or whatever. But when you're organizing an event, what was your approach to like pricing it? Were you trying to just cover costs and make it happen because you believe in the mission? Is there like how do you approach pricing? Like which was more important to you, the experience or the business model or that kind of thing?
Yeah, experience is always first. Not losing your ass on it is always first too.
I think a lot of event designers learn that one the hard way with their first one or whatever.
Yeah, and to be honest, I got really lucky with CamPress Oklahoma. I got a great deal from Aaron Campbell's family on the property, which was a huge help. We had some great sponsors, which was super cool too. But yeah, I guess I look at designing a cool experience, and then I figure out how much does it cost and how much do I want to make so that I can continue to sustain this. So for Iceland, you know, the number of people I wanted to bring, I need to put down 20% when I initially book. Now it turns out that through some cool connections in the WordPress community, I hooked up with a tour company there that was super lax about the deposit, and they were like, "We love what you're doing. We want to be a part of it." Now they even want to advertise for us, but it's yeah, it's you want to make sure you don't lose your ass, and then also that you're making something on it. When I looked at costs for CamPress Oklahoma, I just wanted as many people to sign up as possible. I got some really mixed reviews, and I think it was because of the way that I explained the event to people, because some people said you're charging way too little, some people said you're charging too much, some people said, oh, this is totally reasonable. With CamPress Iceland, I've had two schools of thought. One is, well, actually three. One is, yeah, no problem, I'll check out today. One is, oh man, this isn't cheap, but I aspire to go, right? And so they're saving up, they're waiting, they're figuring out how the holidays go, how their business goes. And then the third is, what are you, crazy? For 4 days, you're charging me $1,400? You're nuts, right? I have 12 RSVPs already, and that was in the first month that it was on sale. So I think I'm priced pretty well. Because I'm actually getting signups, right? There are actually people that are aspiring to go. And the people that are saying it's too expensive, those are few and far between. And so it's really important to listen to what people are saying and continue asking the question, what did you think of this? What did you think of that? What, you know, was this valuable? Was it not valuable? Based on some research I did before I even put the event out there, it was going to be a 3-day event for the same price. And I went back to my travel company and I said, listen guys, we got to figure out how to make this work for 4 days for the same price. And it turns out it worked to my advantage. They had somebody that they were going to hire to play music for us.
So what did the travel company do? Like, what did they do?
What do you mean?
Like in terms of structuring the event, what did the travel company do?
They don't do anything for the magic of CamPress. They basically make sure all of it can happen, right?
So it's like organizing flights, or what is it?
It's anything once we're on the ground. So they're going to have 4x4 modified trucks there to take us across the backcountry of Iceland to our volcano huts. They're going to make sure that we're fed and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's a way, like, I like how you did one, or it makes sense. It's practical to do one a little closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
You proved it, and now you're like, let's go deeper into this idea and push the boundaries a little bit. And then, you know, you can have boots on the ground with a travel company to help, you know, guide you and make sure all the pieces come together. So it sounds challenging to create, but if you have a clear vision and you've got the right people helping you, and that's it. I mean, you have a day job.
Yeah.
You're able to pull it off. That's really inspiring.
Well, I'll just say one other thing, a defining characteristic of the success of both events, and you know, there are some others in the works too, is I partner with somebody on each one. And it's not the same person. So Alex Moss came to me from the UK, and he's like, I'm super stoked about what you're doing. I want to do one in Europe. And I said, cool, let's talk about that. Right. And then we went from doing it in Italy to, he said, what about Iceland? I got friends up there. And I'm like, yes, I've always wanted to go there. Right. Like, let's do it. So partnering, like not being afraid to partner with people. And these guys don't expect, you know, much. They understand what I'm trying to do. So they're not trying to steal the show. They're just genuinely interested in the concept and helping out. So that's super important too, is if you can get somebody to just, you know, partner with. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm a big fan of shared leadership and not doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears into GoDaddy a little bit and talk about training there. What did you do
Cool.
with training at GoDaddy? Or
Yes.
maybe you still do. Like what is your GoDaddy training story?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was at an event at our headquarters, and the CMO was saying, what are some fresh ideas? What are some things that we can do to really push the envelope with our customers and like make things even cooler um, for them? And I said, why don't we like talk to them in person? Like, why don't we do workshops? Why don't we teach them things in person? And she was like, okay, here's the credit card, right? Like it was that easy. She's like, go build it out, go try it, right? And so I did a pilot in Chicago and in Austin where with an instructional designer built out a full curriculum for building a website with both our website builder and with WordPress. And over the period of about 2 years, spent about 2 weeks in Austin, 2 weeks in Chicago each month. So I wasn't home much. And I basically optimized the in-class experience so that people could get up and running with a website uh, in about an hour and a half.
So
And
this was training new customers?
Well, at first it was training new customers. So then it went from training new customers to training trainers.
Okay.
So we started working with local SBDCs and score chapters and things like that.
How would and were these new customers in person or virtual?
Yeah, these were all in person. So
Okay.
I was on a plane going back and forth. At that time, I lived in Iowa. So um,
How did the new customers end up in the room, in the training room? How did that happen?
so would you believe that I leveraged Meetup? Um,
Okay. There you go.
um, so it was funny because I stumbled a bit. I tried making a Meetup that was GoDaddy Meetup, and people are like,
It's a company.
okay,
Yeah.
whatever, right? Um, that was the first time that I really learned that like what you do can't be about you, right? It has to be about them. So then I went on. I remember Ray Massery. He's this dude that works at um, a big one of the big agencies in Chicago, and he runs the Chicago design meetup, or at least he used to. It was huge, and I was like, "Hey, man, yeah, like, you mind if I come and give like a quick like workshop on building websites?" And he was like, "Yeah, it'd be awesome." Like, because every meetup leader needs new content, right? And so that's how I started off. Then it turned out that we found out that like every small business development center in the country trains people on building websites, and so started to go kind of up that funnel, right? But yeah, it was me it was Meetup at first.
That's awesome. You've got my wheels spinning about doing a meetup in a bigger city where there's lots of people about building an online course site in a workshop style. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, and then
Um,
I started moonlighting in Iowa. I was like, man, if this works for business. So I spun up build your first website meetup in Iowa City, Iowa, and I think I charged like $60 for people to come, which it wasn't a lot of money, but proof of concept, it was awesome because I made like $250 one night, because everybody just sat in a room, and I was like, let me help you get your domain. And by the way, they were affiliate codes, and like it was, yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, this is what is it about you and like being a serial event creator or just a serial connector or problem solver? Where does that come from?
Um, I don't know. I've just always loved people, you know.
Yeah,
And when you love people, I guess
you like
you
helping people.
and I have this crazy entrepreneurial spirit, right? So those two things combined and end up with I'm also a trained web or software engineer. Um, so
Okay.
so all those things combined allow me to prototype things and create create things fairly quickly. So
That's awesome. How, just in general terms, like when you were working with the end customer versus training the trainer,
yeah.
how is that different?
Uh,
Or maybe no difference.
Interestingly, it rarely was different. Unless, because there were like a lot of small business coaches and stuff. I can think of this really great group in Chicago. I still miss them, but they were all small business owners trying to help other small business owners be small business owners, right?
Yeah.
And so teaching them how to train their clients was just as difficult as training their, the end user. Then when you got up the funnel to people that were parts of established big organizations, that's when it started to change. So people at small business development centers, that was a little bit different. They were, you'd go to a college in the middle of Brazosport, Texas, and teach somebody how to teach all their clients, and they were building sites every day for their clients, right? And I just came in and gave them some more structure around it, right? So.
Wow, that's awesome. What are some tips you have? When we talk about course creation, we talk a lot about like three main kinds. One of them I call the resource course, one of them is called a behavior change, and the other one's called learn a process. So you're teaching a process course, like from zero to website.
Mm-hmm.
Any tips on teaching a process course in general? Like,
here's a tip on teaching any course.
okay.
And that is, as you build the course, focus on, and it sounds silly, focus on whoever your target is, making their life as awesome as possible. And then make sure to document every piece as you're creating it. Because when you go back to replicate it, then you'll have all of that information. And then when you go back to replicate it, get feedback, right? And then immediately make the change. Don't wait to make the change. Immediately make the change to the curriculum, or to the setup, or to the layout of the room, or the layout of the web page, or whatever, and continually do that. And you'll be amazed how quickly feedback changes, how much quicker learning occurs, all these things. By the way, my dad is has a PhD in education, a doctorate in education, and I don't know if they're the same thing, but anyway, he has a doctorate in education, and he was a school principal for most of my life. And so I guess the whole education thing, it comes pretty easily to me, which is probably why I loved doing that whole training and education thing. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's shift gears over to hosting a little bit. You work at GoDaddy, and you're an evangelist and a space cowboy. We get asked all the time at LifterLMS, what web hosts you recommend for an online course site. A lot of times I like to recommend some kind of managed WordPress hosting, and make sure you've got good customer support and backups. When you're making the case for GoDaddy, what do you love about the GoDaddy universe when people operate in there? And I got to say, for me personally, whenever I go to get a domain name, I go to GoDaddy. GoDaddy's got the best domain name searching. I'm not a serial domain buyer. I'm not a bad one, I should say. But and I've had sites on GoDaddy. I've worked with lots of clients on GoDaddy.
Yeah.
And I've had a great experience. But how do you make the case for GoDaddy?
Yeah, so I've been there around 8 years, and so I've seen progress. I've seen the way the company feels about their customers and change and the experience. Quite honestly, the company just gives a damn about their customers, right? And the whole mission, the entire time I've been there, has been about building awesome stuff that helps customers do their best work. And so right now, the thing that I'm super hot on are actually, well, there's three things. One is this product called SmartLine. It's an app that you download that gives you an extra number for your phone for your business.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And then the Go Central, which is our website builder, that's in its like 4th generation or something like that. And it's a super easy drag and drop builder. So for like 1-page landing sites and like sales sites and stuff like that, it's killer, right? Like you can build something in, I don't know, 20 minutes that you can, throw out there. But the thing that I'm most excited about is where our managed WordPress product is going, because it's now a hyper containerized product that checks all the boxes of all the feedback we received from our 1st generation managed WordPress product. That just launched like a month ago, so it's super fresh, and it's like it's all the latest gear underneath, right? So like if you're a geek and you think about things like PHP and and caching and SSL and things like that, then like you'll totally geek out on what's under the hood, because it looks phenomenal, just like from a technical standpoint. But I guess the coolest part is that like our engineers are banging on this and making it better. Like in real time, I watch these like Slack channel messages like, this customer said that this wasn't working quite right, and so they're like, oh, I got you. I'll take care of that across the system, and like 24 hours later, the bug is fixed or whatever. And so I'm just like, I'm stoked about that. And GoDaddy as a whole, it's cool that you can go to a place and get everything you need. And then you can, if you don't quite understand how to like get started with online marketing or set up your email on your phone or whatever, it's, I think, one of the only companies in the industry that's 24/7 support. So that's my, I dig it, right? Like I've worked there for a while, and I'm a pretty honest guy. I think some of those things that they're innovating on, or that we're innovating on, are pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, that's super cool. The whole managed WordPress thing, and like, what are you managing? And the point you said about like listening to customers and that feedback loop, and then you're seeing it change and making the experience better, removing friction. That's just so key. And being able to get support. I know me personally, there's been many times where it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, gonna call GoDaddy. I got a problem here on my site or client site, and it's good. I get it resolved. So yeah, that's super cool, and making it easy for people to get set up is what it's all about. So,
totally.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Wow. We covered a lot. We covered a lot about your story, about your events, about training people on how to build websites, about where you work at GoDaddy and what they offer. Just to kind of circle it all back to event design, if you're going to give somebody like 1 or 3 tips on starting their first event that's somewhat focused around training a skill or teaching a process or creating a community around a similar tribe of people, what would those best tips be?
If you're scared or questioning it, do it anyway. Let people know that it's an experiment, but don't apologize for it. And genuinely build the experience for the people that you care about, and do it for the right reasons, right? Do it to build something cool, but also remember that it's gotta pay the bills for the effort, and just make sure that you test everything, and you learn, you make changes. And I guess the last thing is that you're going to try and plan everything to the T, and that's what you should do. Just know that it's going to look wildly different the second time you do it. So you're going to learn so much that you're going to kick yourself and you're going to be like, why did I do it that way? Why did I do it that way? But that's all part of it. You can't predict that. So let yourself live in the moment, build something with as much detail as possible, and then just be excited about the fact that you have some sort of success, and make it better and different the next time. So
That's awesome. Well, Mendel Kurland, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to find out more about you, find out about your events, or find you on social media, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so you can hit me up on Twitter. It's at If You Will It. At If You Will It. It's also my website as well. If you want to look at what's going on at GoDaddy lately, GoDaddy.com/pro. That's the stuff that I've been working on. And if you're interested in CamPress at all, it's just camp.press. There's no com or anything like that. It's camp.press. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Mendel. We'll have to do it again after Iceland or something and get a full report and find out more lessons learned about creating masterful events. So thank you again for coming on the show, and have a great rest of your day.
Cool. Thanks a lot.